Oh my gosh, another day. Here we are.
Of course. How are you doing, Miss Terry?
Oh my gosh, I am so something. No, I'm really doing well today. I really am. I'm so excited. I actually taught my hair how to sit.
It looks
It's not
so good.
fluffy today. It's just kind of sitting down.
I was noticing it looked like you straightened it.
I know I didn't straighten it. I did wash it a time or two, but it just seems like it just wants to overreact. Now my other phone's ringing. I love you all so much. You can't get me one way, get me another. There we go. Call you back later. Hi
Oh Lord,
there.
did they double tap both calls?
Yep.
I mean, oh boy.
I don't even know how my other number got out. Oh, it's a mystery. No, actually, it's okay. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, I'm in a snarky mood. I love you all. So it is a little bit for me of, humor first, love second, wisdom at the other end.
Listen, it's a perfect day then because we're talking attachments.
Oh, God,
and
we
those are snarky little things.
Yes.
So
I want to tell you something really quick before we get started. I promise I'll stay on task. But I will try my best.
Same. We're both so ADD.
Well, I spend every day, my waking days helping other people to promote their business, get things situated. You can't help but be a life coach as you're doing intuitive work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've come up with all these great ideas, and I was thinking, okay, this time it's for me. I'm going to come up with this, right? So I'm literally thinking of some funny little things, okay, everyone had a pet rock, and the guy is probably like still living in an island somewhere in Tahiti, off the island. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do something accordingly. I kid you not, within 5 minutes, I go to my phone. I swear the phones are listening. And I look, and there's this company who's selling ghost in a jar.
Oh my God.
A little resin ghost or plastic ghost. I can't tell which it is. In a jar. And some of them have happy faces. Some have the O's, like ghosts will have.
Uh-huh.
And some had like flowers. And I'm thinking, no, you stole my idea.
I know.
But wait, then I thought, you have a ghost in the jar. I'm going to get a spirit in the jar.
Well, and I mean, God, people are doing crazy stuff these days.
They are.
They're marrying ghosts.
I know, all the time. Oh my gosh. Well, I'll tell you, when you get divorced, there's no legal paperwork.
That's a good point.
Maybe they're onto something.
I can't even imagine if I had kiddos and one of them goes, yeah, so I think I'm going to get married in Japan to a ghost. I'd be like, I have failed. Something went awry.
Well, and I would take it the same way, but I'd be like, either onto something or you are on something.
Well,
tell me more, because now I'm very intrigued.
But the hilarious thing is you'd be able to talk to the ghost. You'd be able to, are you going to treat my son well?
Yes. I'd be like, hey, what you bringing to the table? Thin one, see-through one.
Sit down.
Sit down.
That's crazy. People are crazy.
Well, that's true. That's a form of an attachment,
Oh, I love what you did there.
Oh, look at that segue. How'd we do that?
Because you're a professional.
Gosh. Oh, we are. How'd that happen?
We're just walking the walk until it feels right.
Well, sometimes you got to do that. Now, people, really, it is about humor first today.
Yes.
Love second. I love you all. Just get the disclaimer out of the way, but you may get insulted at some point today. Okay,
it's gonna be okay.
Gonna be a
take care of you.
Good day. Yes, attachments.
Yes. So let's build a little bit of a concise definition so we walk forward understanding the same thing.
Oh, that's the wisdom part. Okay.
When I say attachments, I'm referring to a metaphysical energy that has varying degree of sentience.
Okay.
Right? And that it is essentially accompanying a soul-bearing host.
Wow. Did that not sound perfect? That's what we call wisdom. And that's why we know that we're perfect being. Oops, as I hit myself in the head.
Oh, Lord.
Something
and that's starts levitating behind you.
Yeah.
I want to marry your son.
But do you have a tongue? No. Oh my
Do you have a
goodness.
good family background?
Oh my gosh, definitely. So, that's true. And I look at attachment. Attachments are also in your attitude. I can tell if you have an attachment by your attitude. Oh, what does that
Mm.
mean? Now, that's not in the Webster's dictionary either.
Mm-mm.
But you're absolutely right, because Sterling, that's what it is. An attachment is exactly what you just said it to be. Attachment is something that comes along. Sometimes you'll hear me use the word hitchhiker. It's a hitchhiker because most attachments you don't actually overtly invite. You may by your actions, because that's exactly how a lot of it gets ramped up. It's by the way you act. But it is also considered a hitchhiker energy. Okay. So let's look at them. I mean, realistically, going back to Webster, there are two definitions. There are two types, let me put it that way, of attachments. We know that there is a positive attachment, and we'll give you some examples of that as well. And there's also obviously a negative attachment, which is where most of our viewers and our listeners were going, where this is the negative side of the metaphysical study.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So where do you want to jump in? How do we proceed?
All right, let's start with this. And you just touched on a question from Iggy,
Hi, Iggy.
our very beloved watcher. The other day he texted me out of nowhere and he said, "Thanks for the shout out." And I was thinking, I don't remember what we might have said. I hope it was good. He was like, "Oh yeah, you just okay."
I love it.
So his question is, are there good or positive attachments, or are they all malevolent?
Ooh, Iggy, you got your groove on. Yes, there's both. There's absolutely both. And it is. That's why I say attachments are in your attitude. Now, oftentimes, and we'll talk about this as well, oftentimes when you first get an attachment, good or bad, you may have an increased energy. You may feel on top of the world. You may feel like, woo, this is my good stuff. I am revving it up. Here we go.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, sometimes negative energies, what do? They go and they get the good stuff. They want you to keep them. So they make you think just like, hey, you got this, girl. You go do this. And then as soon as your energy is really where it should be, I'm coming in to grab it. It's mine.
Oh, wow.
So we do see that also with negative energies, but there's also cues and signs.
Okay.
But there are two. There are definitely
down.
types. If grandma's your attachment and you loved your grandma to pieces and she's been trying to get you to make her famous blackberry pie, she's probably not hanging a wet towel around your head. She's probably going, "Hi, sweetie, how are you?" And you're like, "Oh, there are good attachments."
So, and so when you talk about like the grandmother situation, you're basically classifying because is it true that attachment is like kind of what you said about the energy? It has a use for you.
Yes.
But like grandma, if she's just choosing to attach to you to spend her energy with you consistently, does she also get energy from you?
Well, and the word you used was consistently, and that's where we get into the problem. When we have positive attachments, we recognize, yeah, hey, come hitchhike for a second. I'd invite you in, grandma. Well, not my grandma. I'm talking about your grandma or somebody else's, not mine. My grandma stays on the other side of that door.
Right. Both of them.
Both of them, all of them, the whole crew. But we recognize that those are temporary attachments. Those are hitching a ride for a minute. Hey, I miss you. I'm coming along for the ride. Let's talk recipes. You're working on, learning some culinary skills. Maybe they were a world traveler and now you're learning how to world travel. So they want to be a part of your world. So then there's a question. Are they hitchhiking or are they just nearby to you? Okay. Most of the time they're nearby.
Mm-hmm.
But because they're so close nearby and you already have an affinity for each other and you already have a deep love and understanding for each other, it's kind of like hitching a ride.
Mm-hmm.
So those are more the positive. Those are not long-term. Those are just, here I am, want to be in your world today, tomorrow. I know I feel like I'm wearing you, but it's just energy being close to you.
And what would you classify? Because we know that within spirit guide systems, there are the ones that stay with us from birth to death, and then the ones that you call them a reason and a season.
Absolutely.
Would those be considered attachments too, or no?
I'm not going to call them attachments. And again, the reason why I don't call them attachment is because I do try to differentiate sometimes between a higher self and a guide. When I'm doing a lot of instruction, I've got to get people to a place where they're not feeling like the only thing they've got going on for them is their higher self. Because that's, again, can be a lonely place, even though it's a very, very amazing place, don't get me wrong. But I also want to, explain it as they are part of your team. And a team is an attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really not interchangeable. So I look at the guides as not attachments, they are a team. So they come with us for a season or a reason, or permanent guides for our lifetimes. So I don't really put them in as attachment.
And they don't, I just heard, they don't have any relationship with the physical world.
Right.
So they're kind of on, whether they're with you or not, they're in that higher echelon anyway.
Exactly.
And attachments exist with, they co-function with the 3D, right?
Right. They co-function.
Okay.
Exactly. And if anyone's ever watched Men in Black, and I know it was, funny and, it's fiction and all that good stuff, but there was one scene, and I can't even remember the name of the guy, but he had this other person, this attachment on the side of his neck. And when he turned, the guy just kind of looked at him like, hey, I am. Well, was that a negative attachment? Well, the guy seemed like a happy dude. He seemed real happy to have him. He wasn't doing anything really bad. So, in a stretch of this conversation, that's kind of what a positive would be. If they're not directly negatively influencing your life or anyone else's life that is around you, then they're really just there, positive. And you can choose to keep them or not keep them. If I love my grandma and I still don't want her attached to me, I go, hey, grandma, back up a little bit, getting a little crowded in here. And then it would be more like, hi, now you're standing near me rather than coming through my energy.
Right. Well, and also too, I was thinking with like the grandma thing, say, or it does have a little bit of an issue with free will, because say you're kind of an aggressive go-getter, grandma's really passive and sweet. As she stays in your energy, that will adjust you into somewhere in the middle of that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's complicated.
It is complicated because there's so many different sides to this. I would really like the viewers and listeners to kind of take a mindset for a bit here, that think of an attachment as what you feel when you say you go around some of your besties, and your besties are real positive and upbeat, and you feel positive and upbeat because you're around them and they're like, woo, this is good. Energy's energy. You're feeling upbeat. This is good. Then you go into a negative environment, maybe with like my relatives or something from the past, not the ones now. I love you all. And you go there and you're like, oh, this feels oppressive. This is not good. Now, it doesn't mean that I literally picked each one of them up and wore them as a jacket. It simply means now I have an oppressiveness from them, from their spirit. And if they were to attach in energy, then I would have probably an oppressiveness about my energy.
I remember one time I drove to your house. We were having dinner for some like a get together, and on the way there, I just randomly thought about my mom. Mm-hmm. So I get there, I'm probably at your place 2 hours maybe, and then I just bring it up like, dang, that's so weird. I was thinking about my mom, and you immediately said, I'm so glad you said something, because you weren't going to until I did, but that you felt that my mom was really close to me that day. Mm-hmm. And so that's even like, I'm pretty intuitive, I feel. Mm-hmm. And she had detached for that time frame, and I think she was really missing me or mad at me, whatever it could be. But the way it manifested is I started thinking about her. Yeah. And who knows, maybe I would have had more of a temper that night. Like, who knows what else could have been a result of that.
That's exactly right.
Which is so weird, because you can't control that.
You can't. And if you look at it, it gives you a little bit more power. Think of it this way too. Instead of attachment, if you look at it as a hitchhiker, you pick up a hitchhiker. Now, don't do that, people. That's not safe. But it's safe, for instance, you're foolish enough to pick up a hitchhiker, right?
Right.
You're not going to drive around all day going, hey, what do you want to do next? You're going to have a plan of action. You're going to have an exit. So ideally, no matter good or bad, the hitchhiker is going to have a place to go bye-bye. Mm-hmm. And that's really the best part of that. That's really the way it should be. Attachments, good and bad. Hopefully the bad will go quicker than the good. But the bottom line is, this vessel is yours. You've got to sign this meat sack when you first came into this world for the umpteenth time, and you got to take good care of it. So you can't let everybody in your house, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, house as housing. So we recognize that, yes, as a hitchhiker, you have more control over the outcome of exit.
Yes, and so this is a really great point about the control thing. So I remember either on the podcast or off, I can't remember, but I told you about that egg trend that was going around. And there was this trend, I think it was on TikTok or something, where people were basically saying if you take an unbroken egg and then you rub it all over your body with the intention that it takes with it negativity, and then you break it in the water, you're supposed to be able to divine. And I say this a little bit sarcastically because I think there's a lot here that I don't know I believe in, and you're supposed to be able to read the egg curdlings and tell yourself what's been bothering you. And I'm like, all right, that sounds a little bit nuts, but everybody was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I asked my guides, like, is this working or what's the cost of it? And they basically said that it was going to remove more than what people thought it would. So it's like ambitions, like desires, like certain generative energy would go with it.
Right.
So I'm like, what are we doing, guys? Like we can't just, we need to protect our energy, but from the mental plane, from the causal plane, not these things that we think are going to rip away from us. Like we should be able to expel them ourselves with enough intention and concentration and desire for change.
Well, and that's exactly right. But you got to look at it also from another standpoint too, just briefly, just very briefly, is that, for one thing, TikTok has always got the facts, just for the record. And so the second part, I told you we're going to lead with humor.
Yes.
Love and wisdom.
But I think that was wisdom.
Ah, that was. But also in keeping in line with this as well, remember that while you're busy taking that egg and rubbing it from head to toe, you're not worrying about anything. You're busy not breaking the egg. And so your mind is somewhere else. Your energy is also diffusing. You may be thinking you're concentrating, but I'll tell you you're concentrating and not breaking that damn egg. So you're taking your thoughts elsewhere. Now, in the same premise again, adding another piggyback here, I'm a firm lemon lady, right? People call me, I've literally been called the lemon lady, and I'm like, okay, but I'll take it. It's better than being called the egg lady, I guess. But I believe that it absorbs negative energy and vibrations, but I don't expect to rub it all over from head to toe. I may bathe in it, but I'm not really feeling like my answers are going to come from an egg or a lemon that I'm rubbing all over my skin, and then reading the pectin or reading the egg whites. So that's a curious thought.
Right. Well, and that's a whole different topic. But so, and we'll talk about this at the end, maybe what we can do to strengthen our energy.
Okay. I like that.
To be able to deal with that if that's true. But this is a big thing that you and I have talked about a million times. So everybody, they can have like an off day, or they could have like a summer cold like you and I have right now. And then they're telling everybody and themselves that they have an attachment.
Yes.
Because that must be why they yelled at their husband. It must be why they did something that they are perceiving as not of their normal behavior. But
so it's blame, right?
A little bit, right? I mean, it's
a little bit of blame.
But then we always say it's actually really challenging for an attachment to adhere to a person. Like it's not that easy. And that's one of the biggest things I would love to stress today is it isn't like you can just go to the grocery store and come home with this highly malevolent energy.
Right.
Because we have a vibrational mismatch, hopefully.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on that?
And I agree with that. I do feel that most of the time you're pretty well protected. Most of the time your energy is resilient enough that you're just going to slide on by some of the negative energy that's around you. We recognize sometimes that things do happen. And I will tell you, I have had an attachment. I had an attachment one time specifically, and it was and I'll be real brief about this, but in the same line, yes, we typically don't just rush in and get all these attachments, and we don't want you confined to your house and afraid to go anywhere, afraid to get anything. I don't want you to feel that way. Okay. There's no mask big enough to keep you from an attachment. Okay. So my point being is when I was on vacation, I did actually have an attachment. And I told you about that. And it's really funny because I can't even remember the island that I was on right now, but it was on a cruise and we had stopped. And I literally felt the attachment. and it entered in through my mouth. And I know this sounds like something from either, a horror movie or a sci-fi movie, but it literally came in through my mouth. I choked. I could not breathe. I could not speak for 30 seconds. And I thought I was going to pass out. And it was just entering in actually an open air place. And I went into the surroundings of it. And I ended up being sick. Remember that I came home and I had the worst illness I've ever had. And it was the worst upper respiratory I'd ever had. And the doctor was like, we'll just give you everything under the sun and see what happens, which they did. And finally it went away. But I truly believe that was more an attachment than it was a virus that became airborne, as they all do, and entered in and gave me a physical reaction. I feel like something in particular jumped in and decided I was going to be the host for a while.
Well, and I would like to say for the listeners too, the thing that is unique about you specifically is you would be a high value host. You're very spiritually gifted. You're very strong energy. So one could argue I would doubt that was as accident. I don't think that was particularly accidental.
It was well, and I'm in agreement there. And if I had not had that type of experience, I would have felt it far-fetched to hear it from somebody else, because it was so obvious and it was so troubling. My husband was there and he grabbed me by the shoulders because I thought I was going to keel over. And I knew it. And I told him something just came into my energy, just came into my body. And it was that prevalent. And I spent, I immediately left the place, did not go back in. And I continued, while I was still gone and out of the country, I continued to clear and ground my energy. But it's hard to clear and ground your energy when you've already, kind of taken it in.
Known it.
So you want to get that clear and ground done before it's, when it's circling the wagons, clear and ground is a heck of a good job to do, clear and get it away from you. But once it's in your energy, you do have to get a little bit more just kind of involved in the manipulation of getting it out, which I did for almost 30 days.
That's so wild.
It was very wild. It was very, very wild. I was the closest thing to death I ever felt. And, that's.
And you've had near-death experiences.
And I've had two. Exactly. This was one of those things dragged out.
That's crazy.
It's like the equivalent of being put in the cellar with the door shut for a month. Yeah, it was bad.
Do you feel that attachments are held to the same distance standards? Like, you were on an island. Does it seem like maybe that you were chosen as a host to attempt to get it off the island?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I wondered. Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. That makes it really important then if you are traveling in that way.
Well, that's true. And, it's very interesting, too, because I'll tell you, when I first got back, and, I work I'm a workaholic. I love to work. It makes me happy. I like to help people. And it's the first time in my entire life, really, that I can remember. Even when I gave birth, C-section, I was working, 2 days after I got home.
Oh, my God.
So I'm a tough cookie. But I literally, it was around that week before Thanksgiving, I did not go to my office. I did not talk to anyone for 8 days. Other than just, hey, I'm good, I'm fine, for my family, for you all. But I didn't engage in any work because I knew that was a bad choice. And so I spent a lot of time. And the residual effect of it, too, was that I was ill. I did get very sick. And I stayed very sick for nearly a month. And I do feel that it was something that was eradicated. I felt like the actual issue was gone, but it had left its mark.
It was so poisonous to your energy.
Yes, and it didn't match my energy, so it was very poisonous. Hi, baby. See the kitty, Kathy. Hi, sweetie. I love cats.
So how do you think when that experience happened, like, what made you say it was a bad idea to engage in spirituality? What was the fear or the concern?
Because I didn't want it to think, okay, well, one and done. Let me see what else is out there.
Oh.
I did not want to do that. And I was very guarded about talking to people for a while. And this was, again, by Thanksgiving, Sterling's counting down the days going, I was there.
No, I don't, no. Terri. Oh my God.
But I had already been through quite a bit by the time we got together for Thanksgiving.
I felt so sad because you couldn't taste everything.
No, I couldn't for nearly. It was the worst. I had never been that sick in my entire life.
Oh my
And
God.
literally, there were times where I thought this is my last breath because I can't breathe anymore. And so I knew that I had to keep getting it out because it left its mark of illness, which is what negative energies will do. They'll leave a mark of illness. And in my mood, I had to be very careful because as you can imagine, I mean, I was cranky as hell, right? Because here I am not able to work, which is my passion. And sitting home, my husband was gone all week for work because he was working really hard at that time. And I am absolutely miserable. So I was trying to get a negative force out of me when I was trying hard not to be a negative person with it.
Which is so, I mean, that's a lot to ask of one energy.
Well, and it can be quite a bit. And, you know, the thing about it, too, there's so many different types, you know, and also what we're doing this morning. And, you know, we're going to break it up into also how we feel when we get an attachment and how we are sensed in others, how others see us in the process. You know, I can say from me in that instance, I felt like crap, obviously. I had to fight being angry. I had to fight the poor me. I had to fight succumbing to it because I felt sometimes it was just like, just take me, you know, I'll come back again. And so that was a pretty significant force. My husband saw it as I was aloof. I was distant. I didn't talk. I didn't want to be around him. I slept in the living room. I slept in the chairs. I didn't want to be anywhere near because I didn't want anyone else to catch whatever the illness part was. And I didn't want anyone to catch whatever the attachment was.
Oh my God.
But I will tell you, and I'm grateful to this day, I will tell you, and I even said it afterwards, I am grateful for the experience because I cannot teach you what I do not know. And I spend most of my time looking for experiences rather than what I see as knowledge. So I actually thanked my team for getting me through it. Never let it happen again. I've got the lesson number one, but also grateful that I had the experience to do so.
You just said when the team let that happen. I was literally just about to ask you when that happened to your physical body.
Yes.
If you can back out and relive, what was Brutus doing? Like, what is that? Were they under attack as well?
Well, I was told not to go in there. See, I'm not, and what's funny for me is I'm not really a shopper. When I go to these islands, I'm not really a shopper. I'm an observer. I love to watch. I don't need stuff. I mean, people that know me know that I don't really have a lot of, just miscellaneous trinkets and things. I just don't. I don't buy things. And so I was not really going to go in that shop. And I walked to the shop and I stood outside and I heard no. And when I heard no, I stepped in and I thought, I mean, it happened so fast. I was thinking, why am I walking in? I don't even want, there's nothing in here I want. And I heard
so there was a siren call.
It was a siren call, yeah.
Oh and my God, that's so crazy.
And I just barely walked in. I had put my feet underneath. It was an open market. So, it wasn't, just a building with a door. I walked in, and the second I walked in is when I started, immediately, when both feet came in instead of one, I immediately had an issue.
See, and that's another truth about us and the stuff that we do. It's like, it's not like they paint a billboard for us. Like it's not that simple and it's not that easy.
No.
So that's so crazy though, because it just we always say like, we're just human. Well, like the guides are still just guides. You know what I mean? They can't save us from ourselves necessarily. I didn't know that there had been any kind of warning to it though.
That's all there was no. And I just,
you're like, no, what?
Right.
And nobody would think that they're telling you to not go in the shop. That's not an intuitive thing.
You get a little arrogant when you're on vacation too. You're like, I want a Jew at my time. And I did. I was like, I'm going in there.
Can you imagine Brutus just closing the curtains for like, good luck.
Good luck. Exactly. And that's how it hit me. Now, it won't always hit people with negative attachments that soon. Sometimes it's in what you feel. Maybe it takes a while, Are you feeling kind of crappy? Are you feeling like you're having a difficult time? Or are you feeling on top of the world, but you're kind of anxious about it? Like you've got an adrenaline rush, but you're like, what's going on here? Hey, this is good and bad. What's going on? Well, there's a lot of feelings.
So, like we said earlier, there's a gradient of intelligence. There's a gradient of sentience to these things. Because I remember you one time told me when we were training that if somebody deeply, deeply engages in anger or sorrow or one specific energy, that can create an attachment-like energy within them.
Yes.
And you said that you could actually have conversations with some of those stronger, sentient,
Yes.
emotion-based energies.
Absolutely.
So how, help me understand that a little bit more.
And that's a tricky thing, because when you are talking to someone who's sitting across from you and you know they have an attachment, and you know that it's not just going to be you going over there and like picking lint off them, you know, it's going to be a lot more substantial than that. You can't just go in gung-ho like the Lone Ranger and just go, you're mine, and grab them out of there. It doesn't work that way. I have talked to them. I had one that actually is kind of freaky. I got to tell you about this attachment. I had a client, I'll never forget her, and I don't know her name, and I don't remember her name, and that's so funny how that always works. But she literally had a draconian. She walked in with a draconian, and I thought, damn girl, if that's your spirit guide, I really wish you'd picked another intuitive. But she came in and she sat down, and she literally sat there and said, I'm draconian. And I thought, no kidding. Something's off here. Something is really off. And I knew it was an attachment. And so I had to very nonplussed talk to her, because I wasn't going to rev up the ego of this, okay, within her, and also the ego of the entity.
Oh my God.
So I had to be very careful, because I had to be very almost neutral and non-involved, because I didn't want to become the next, like, oh, a little snack over here, right? So I protected myself. I cleared and grounded myself. I put a shield up. I made sure that my guides are near. And, and I let her talk. And there was a lot of ego going on. She enjoyed the power she had, that she could hurt her family members, even though she was remorseful about it. Well, there was a dual action, right? Remember I said sometimes you'll feel really good about something really bad. And that's what she was doing. She was feeling the really good in something really bad. And so what I was doing is I was listening to her, but I was kind of putting them in two categories. And again, it's like we do this all the time when we are listening to say something we don't want to really hear, and we're doing laundry, or we're doing dual action. So I separated half my brain for her and half my brain for the draconian energy that was part of her. And I said to it, I said, why have you come? Because, last time I looked, you weren't living next door to me. Why are you here? Why are you on earth? Why have you come? And it was basically because I can. And okay. So we got ego versus ego. Well, wasn't anything I could do. She didn't want to lose it, by the way.
No, right. Exactly.
She'd come to me to tell me how it had affected her family, and how she had to stop talking to her family and had to be aloof from her family. And she was becoming more estranged from people, but she wasn't saying, help me. She was saying, this is my action. This is what I'm doing. So she was feeding right into it. And I asked her, I said, do you want to release yourself from this? She said, well, of course I do. I said, what have you done to release yourself? And there wasn't any answer, because the draconian side of her was like, good luck. So is that one that I couldn't help? Yeah, couldn't help her. I don't think she wanted to. She wasn't coming to me to be saved. She wasn't coming to me to be helped. She was coming to me to posture.
Which you've had several of those.
I have had them.
Because I can't stress this enough. Like you're very, very gifted and very powerful. So it makes sense that
it's very sweet of you to say that. I'm just
it's
me,
true.
but thank you. Well,
but I say this to say, like, you will always, like, you live a wholesome and a good, righteous, in the light life, and still those will come.
Yes.
Right, but they're still going to posture with you, because they're not going to posture with somebody who they perceive as just kind of weak and not really that interesting, which is the majority of humanity. Because not many people are really stretching this muscle, and then and to do so at your level, they're going to come find you. You know what I mean? To get a little bit of a kerfuffle, so to speak.
Well, and that's the thing, in that situation, and if there would have been anyone else that would have sat in there with me, if it would have been a student, or it would have been something going on differently, I would have asked them to leave. Because I would have thought, okay, this energy, this entity might be trying to pick one of us off, and because again, it's just far reaching, right? Any negative energy wants to have as much as it can. And if it wears out its host, it's got to find a new one. So it kind of keeps a few in reserve.
Oh my God.
And so I will tell you that particular person, I'll never forget her, because literally at one point I looked at her, and when she I kid you not, when she blinked, her eyes went sideways. Reptilian. And it wasn't my imagination. I wasn't afraid. I was the only one in the building, and it was in my old office. And I just sat there thinking, I am sitting face to face with a draconian attachment. And this isn't any frills. This isn't any ooh la la's. This is like real shit. And when that happens, you know you've got to do real things. And I could not go in and just, think that, okay, well, I'm Top Gun here. I'm going to get rid of you. I had to see what it wanted, and it really wanted her, and it was really asking me, what are you going to do about it?
And you said, I'm about to take my lunch break. I'm not doing anything.
And
like, I'm not. That's like that thing when there's like the cop who's about to go home. He just lets the speeder go because he doesn't want to do the paperwork. I get it. That's got to be.
She didn't want my help. She did not. She told me. She said, I was drawn to come see you. I was told I had to come see you, and I said, who told you? She said, I don't know. So it wasn't human. It wasn't like her bestie said, hey, go see Terri. There was something about it, and I thought, okay, cool. Now, people, I've heard that before. Don't think that you have an attachment just because you've had a dream about me. That's not ego. I'm just telling you, I'm not stalking you, hon.
Right. Oh my goodness.
But I appreciate your dreams. But we do see that. We do see that they're led to certain people.
So with that said, there was another client you had, and I won't go into too many details, but you felt that she said that that the guide was Lucifer.
Yes.
But when I quizzed you about it in your backyard, because that's all I ever do is like, what do you mean? And then what? But so you had said, though, this is what threw me off, was you said that this energy was actually protective of her.
Yes.
Very of the dark.
Yes.
Negative in nature.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Precisely.
But that there was, and I said, well, is it love? And you said it doesn't feel all the way like love. And there was definitely some interest in her kid.
Yes.
But not deeply malevolent there either.
Nope. No.
So what is that about? You know what I mean? Like, is that just someone needing a host? And it's because like all of us are gradient scales of good to bad. Attachments must be as well.
Well, exactly. And something needing a host and a host needing something else.
Oh, God. Yeah, we got to get into that part. Yeah.
Some people want these attachments. Some people look for these attachments. It's their way of feeling alive. If I can't have the real thing, I'll have something in the spirit world. And we know that happens, and that happens more often than we want to imagine. And people, please understand, and Sterling brought this up, your guides are not your attachment. Your guides are your people, their team. They help you so much. That's why they're there. Don't try to eradicate them. Don't try to scare them off. But like what we've talked about with the demonic Luciferian energy, and then we go to, a draconian energy. There was something that both people were getting. It may have been very far from the spectrum of each other, but there was something both were getting. And they didn't want to let go of it. Now, I know some of you are out there going, yeah, but they don't know better. You've got to help them. They don't know better. Well, there's also signs. Again, remember, you have a team. And you have those that are with you in the spirit world. There are signs that say, hey, uncle, it's time to go, crying uncle, let's wave the white flag. But I didn't see that in those instances. And I am not going to go in and strip something away from someone that that they're not ready for it to be gone. 2, they don't want it to be gone. And 3, I don't want to keep it.
And also, it's not so easy because they literally just showed me, I can't remember what movie it's from. It's from X-Men 3, which is such a specific thing. But at one point, whenever the Phoenix, whatever, she's created this barrier around her. And as you approach it, like the skin was starting to burn, and like there was so for someone like us to reach into someone else's energy is outrageously challenging because it's meant to be.
Yes.
So
should be. Right.
If somebody looks at us and says like, how could you not help them? I'm gonna be like, well, how many homeless people did you just pass that you didn't do something for?
Right. And that's
like,
true.
You know what I mean? The cost to try and go do that for somebody when they don't want it to be done, it's like going into battle for somebody that doesn't even want the battle to occur. And that's just not a realistic
Well, and
thing
that's
to
true.
do.
There's free will as well. If there's free will and someone is not giving any signs, either spiritually or through their team spiritually, that they want to be released, I can't go in there and take away their free will. That's not my job. It's not my right. And so we do see attachments. And again, there are positive ones. There's joyful ones. They're usually short term. They're hitchhikers. They're just coming to hitch a ride. They love you. They just think you're amazing. They want to do the shimmy shimmy with you. They're coming in through trance channeling. I let a lot of people through this vessel. I mean, I do that because I know Brutus is an attachment. We'll still talk about what happened, but it typically doesn't allow attachment because I've set the boundaries. Don't allow this to ever happen again, number one. And two, take care of me when I'm doing my trance mediumship or my trance channel because I'm letting in energies. Is that an attachment? Sure it is. It's a temporary one. But if someone is speaking through my mouth, that's a temporary attachment. It's a hitchhiker. I've allowed him to hitchhike. I just opened the door and gave him a ride. I said, hey, you, come on. I'm okay with that. But most people need to be reminded that this isn't a game. Having an attachment is not a game. It can be really beneficial, if you're doing trans speaking for someone and having an attachment help them. But you must recognize that your vessel is your fragility. That's you. You've got to take care of that. And you cannot take this lightly. Attachments overall are not a good thing.
Well, and also I don't know this for a fact, but I feel led to say this. It does seem likely that these energies would hang out at mismanaged ayahuasca ceremonies, mismanaged, because you're essentially having your vessel stretched wide open. And then it's like, if you who's to say that isn't just like opening 18 doors for these energies and there's 20 people and so everyone's got a host now.
Everybody's got a host. I am not going to bash that because I'll have a whole community after me. And I've actually recommended it a few times to clients in a few situations. But I'm going to tell you, I have enough horror stories in my head about some of those ceremonies that would freak anybody out if I told them. And I want to tell you, some of those attachments don't leave easily. I have a client. I just think the world of this guy. He's such an amazing guy. And oh my gosh, whatever the ayahuasca trip did to him, I will never be able to repair. He is a different person, normal, great guy, very spiritual, very sweet, very loving, very connected. And he is he's a mess. Let me put it that way. I mean, every condition under the sun, every nuance of sickness and headache and stomach ache and body aches. He can't walk, he can't breathe, and he's like 35. So people,
my God,
use good judgment. If your higher self says do it, then you and your higher self do it. But if you have any doubt, again, plant medicine is still called medicine for a reason.
And a lot of medicine is deadly if you take too much of it.
If you don't follow the guidelines, yes. I'm not bashing it. Hey, go experience, go do your psychedelics. I don't really care. If you just transformed into a better person from your outcomes, then hey, you got my Hail Mary. I'm good with you. But don't take it lightly, folks. There's a lot to be said there, okay?
In the more intelligent attachments, because we were kind of talking about the one that got to you, I feel like it was just going like, let's just brute strength into this energy. But there's a lot that are a little bit more charming.
Oh, yes. They can be very charming. Oh, yes.
And that's kind of one of them where, you have a girl who maybe she has body image issues. Before you know it, she's self-abusing, either bulimia, or, like she's opening her energy up, or rather, she's weakening her energy through her own behavior.
Yes.
And then before you know it, there's an energy saying, no, you're beautiful. And I'm going to make sure everyone sees how beautiful you are.
Yep.
And you'll never feel less than when you look in the mirror.
That's right.
And before you know it, she's like, who would say no to that?
Well, exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's right. I mean, it comes at a price, but who would say no? That does happen. And we see that. That's what they call a complete change in personality or in preference. This is the person now who, never be in the club scene and now is out there wearing, 3 to 5 inch stilettos. we see that there are changes in personality and preferences, and oftentimes they're either misguided or they come out of nowhere. I mean, we can't imagine what the heck prompted it. So we do have to look at it and say, okay, is this an attachment, or is this just, an awakening of, hey, I'm going to, forget my insecurities? What is it that's causing it? But we do know that that's what others sense. When we see that, we're going to look at that and go, what the heck just got into that person? We use that phrase, even the muggles use it, right?
Mm-hmm. What's gotten into her?
Right.
Wow. Wait. Oh, so sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well,
Need another cup of coffee.
No, an attachment says, "I'll make sure you're never tired again."
I know. No, actually, I'm
listen. Our target audience attachment would be like, "What can allow us to work forever and not need sleep?"
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, if you want to come proposition us, these are what we want.
Oh gosh. We're shutting the door.
No, I'm just but then that kind of goes back to the topic of, blame and then actual reality. Because I could, people probably weaponize this saying, oh my God, she has this attachment. She's been so different, whatever, and then maybe she's just made a life choice and you can't go with her.
Right. True.
Good or bad.
Good or bad. I mean? That's right. Good or bad. It is right. A life change, an attitude change, a preference change does not all mean that you have now got an attachment. It just may be that the things you're exhibiting, the behavior you're exhibiting now is unfamiliar to others. So they may immediately recoil and go, what's got into you? It may be for the best.
In our vibration, our decisions, basically our actions and thoughts and decisions that quantify our energy, right? I just went Italian. Your energy. I don't know why I did that. But like that is the immune system to these things.
Yes.
So, and that's really beautiful, honestly, because if that girl that had the body image issues, whatever, she's going through that period where her vibration is low, but then say a couple months go by, she gets close with her family again, things become more wholesome for her in general. First of all, you and I are very close. So I'm sure you would just say, hey, we got to talk. But say we weren't that close and I don't really know you that well, so you can't probably get too real with me about the way this works. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, hey, Terri, I need help. Mm-hmm. What's your process? And you can feel that I want it, whatever.
Okay. I would probably do a lot of, this is going to sound awful, but I'd probably quiz you. So how you doing? What you been up to? Gosh, I like this. You like this? Did what's your favorite thing to do? Oh, mine too. I would probably get to know you a little bit to see where you would go with your answers. I would want to know, are you more earthbound energy? Are you more, alien energy that's attached? Are you more cryptic? Are you just a negative thought form? Maybe you just have a negative thought form that took shape into an attachment. I want to know where your head's at. Mm-hmm. What's going on in that energy of yours? And then we take it a step further, depending on what was needed. Sometimes attachments really don't like other people getting close to their hosts.
That isolation thing.
Yeah. So I would either sit closer or I'd offer you some water and I'd put my hand on your shoulder as I was bringing it. Into an attachment, that's a little bit of posturing. So you have to be careful there, right? But I would see if you recoiled. I would see if you leaned back. I would see where you sat when I'm sitting with you. Where are you going in the room? If you were an aggressor, an attachment that's an aggressive attachment, then you might want to sit in my chair and not want to move. Or you would reach for things that are, like my chapstick and play with it. Or, something that would be showing me territorial issues. Transgressive, yes. Great. Exactly. So we recognize that there's many techniques. I've got to figure out what you've got. I've got to figure out what level. Is it, dangerous? Is it just, garden variety? If I could say, hit the road, Jack, get out of here. Would that work? Can I do a healing on this person? Do I need to clear some of the chakras and help them with that? What do I need to do in the moment to help them? Because, I may only get to see them for 30 minutes and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, Rome wasn't built in a day and I can't get your attachment out in, 30 seconds, 30 minutes. So I have to kind of go from what I know is intuitively and help as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of cord cuttings. Sometimes cord cuttings are not just for the physical beings in our lifetime, our family, our parents, our friends, our relationships. Sometimes they're for attachments, getting rid of things that are energetically disabling you. So it is a process. I would certainly get to know how the energy responds to me first, so I would know if I was in danger or if this was just something that was low level.
Do you ever feel, I don't know why this word just came to me, but like a simmering? Like sometimes things will just sit there in the energy and kind of simmer but not boil.
Yes.
And so that's weird because you don't really know what's going to happen if it does boil.
Right, exactly. What is the outcome of it?
That's so scary. I mean, to me, I'm a baby, so I don't do great with.
Again, there's nothing fun about trying to clear an attachment. I mean, it isn't, it's nothing you want to go, oh, yeah, well, look at me, another notch on my metaphysical badge here. I've done another clearing. It's really not about that. It's anytime you are trying to rid someone of an attachment, there is a potential of it hopping on you or hopping around the room and getting onto your next client. So you got to clear and ground your room. You got to clear and ground yourself. You've got to make sure that you're not, setting up an unhealthy environment for someone to step into. I have a client, and this is very true. I mean, I have a client, this happened to me the other day too. I have a client who has several attachments. She's kind of, up there and probably has a few medical diagnoses as well. But she's not willing to get rid of any of them. And every time she comes, and I'm happy to see her if I could do something to help her. And, she's nice enough to me. I do tend to Clorox my table afterwards, and I clear my room with my feather. And so that helps me to make sure nothing stays. Well, this was about 2 weeks ago, and I had a client who I was running about 5 minutes behind. I opened my door, my attached soul walked out, and my other client was right on her heels coming in, walked in the room and said, "Man, it feels off in here. This feels bad." I said, "You're right. It should. Step out." And I cleaned it. I cleared it. And she came in, she goes, "Oh, that's much better."
That's crazy because you can feel that.
You can feel it.
Oh my God.
Not everybody can. But if you have some sensitivities, you will feel something's off in the room, especially if you're an empath.
Oh my God. Well, and side quest question, remind me again why the feather is so impactful and helpful.
Well, for me, a couple things. I've always felt angelic energy around feathers, white feathers. I am very drawn to white feathers. I always have been. I see them as pure and wholesome. I also am, I've got a little bit of Mohawk energy, Mohawk blood in my body. And so in shamanism, we know the feathers have a lot of power and they're used in many rituals. And so for me, it's just a good way of clearing energy.
No, that makes total sense. I was just curious. I couldn't remember. Dang. Okay. So as we kind of travel along the non-sentient thought forms that we create for ourselves that could then become attachments, we got into like kind of the not terribly bad, but definitely not in your best interest and relatively intelligent.
Right.
And then
yes.
And then the other, the furthest side of that spectrum would then go into what we would call, I guess, demonic, but definitely earthbound dark energies.
Yes.
They can't leave. They can't go anywhere. So they're just messing with us for eternity, essentially.
Right. Pretty much so.
And they usually, this is, we remember the gentleman, it was a friend of mine, client of yours, and he wound up taking his own life because there was this attachment situation going on. We feel that it was starting to threaten his kids or trying to get him to threaten the kids. So it was actually quite a self-protective mechanism that he chose. And I remember being, devastated at the answer when I asked you this. And I said, why did this energy do that to him? And you literally said it was just a joyride.
That's it.
And that it took his life. And we can never know necessarily what he was getting from that energy.
Right.
But what I do know of the details is that he was heavily, heavily addicted and he was always in physical pain.
Yes.
So between those two things, he was never able to get his energy strong enough to combat something that was heavily malevolent,
Right.
and destructive. Like you said, most, like a virus, by the time it doesn't want to kill its host, because that means then it's done.
Right.
But
Unless
if
it
you
has a
have
new
enough,
one ready to hop in, it won't do that. That's right.
I mean, to me, that's the highest price to pay for, being stuck in a situation of that nature. And there's no blame necessarily, although we just recognize what was in place for that energy to feel very at home.
Right. Right. Exactly. It's a perfect place because everything is, everything is there. This host was feeling poorly. This host was in an addictive behavior. This host was really just kind of an open door in order, for something to come through, unfortunately.
And we go, the language changes here too at some point, because then it goes from attachment into basically almost a possession.
Yes.
Basically, I guess attachment would be when you both co-travel with some semblance of control, and then
Right.
possession would just be complete submission to it.
Complete submission.
Oh
Things
man.
will only be so powerful for so long to the host. You'll only feel so good for so long. You'll only feel on top of the world for so long. Your inhibitions will only be so much for so long. But after a while, again, there's nothing to replenish you. It's not like an attachment. Think of an attachment as a parasite. Now, Grandma, I'm not calling you a parasite, but I'm simply saying you're a hitchhiker. Just come and go and do your thing. But that, again, a parasite doesn't do anything for the host typically. After a while, it'll just make them sick. They'll either
Dang.
physically wither away, or they'll starve themselves, or they'll have an addiction that's overpowering, that destroys them. Depression. I mean, there's a lot of things that these parasitic attachments can do. And as far as possession, that's a whole nother session on its own. But there are so many people out there that don't believe in possession, and I will tell you, I don't take anything lightly. I don't say yes to everything. I don't go in there and go, yep, gobble that up. That happens, this happens, that happens. But I've seen possession, and I've had very lengthy discussions with some of my colleagues about it. Some of them are like, oh, that's just mental illness. Well, a lot of mental illness plays a part in it, because in order for you to be possessed, you have to have something there, right? You have to have something that's waiting to be held on to, right?
Like a vacancy, maybe.
Like a vacancy, right? Got a room at the inn open.
Yeah. Oh, that's so scary. Imagining your,
yeah, exactly.
The open sign.
Yes.
That's like luminette or neon. Oh my God.
Yes. And again, possessions are very uncommon. Most attachments are not possession. They don't possess you. They feed off you, and then they go to someone else when they're done with you. But more than anything, we look at possessions, and I've seen that a few different ways and a few different people, and it's quite frightening, because you realize that there's a vacancy of humanity in that energy. And that's the most startling view you'll ever get as a person. And in my belief, I've seen it. And the view is the most horrendous, scariest thing, because you realize that you're not really dealing with an animal. You're not dealing with a human. You're dealing with something that doesn't fit any of the descriptions that we are trained and taught and feel. And it doesn't, again, folks, don't go out there thinking that your best friend's possessed just because they won't let you, borrow the car. It's just really, possession is a serious business act. And, there's something to be said about them.
Well, we've talked about this. I can't remember if it's on here or not, but when people black out drunk.
Yes.
And that's another way that temporary possessions are pretty, the most common of them, I would say, would be that, right? Because you exit your body, you're outside your body connected with the silver cord, because you've made your vessel super uncomfortable.
Oh, yes.
And that's the reason the spirit would leave, because we're like, we don't want to be in this body right now. It's super uncomfortable. We're being poisoned.
Right.
No judgment. Like, I drink, but but when you get to that point where you've exited your body, then that's just literally giving the house away.
It is.
And this is what's crazy to me. These energies are not so strong that the moment you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I had a crazy headache, but I got to get to work, that it's no longer allowed to be there.
Right.
So that's the kind of, if there's any evidence that our energy is strong, is we know really good people or really normal people who don't abuse themselves and they get blackout and the next day they're fine.
Right.
And maybe somebody said, oh my God, you looked so angry when you looked at me last night. I didn't even think it was you. Maybe probably wasn't.
Probably wasn't. That's right.
But the lovely reality here is, yet you still woke up the next day. Majority of the time you're fine. You're hungover. You get to work. And so there is something very strongly to be said about how intrinsically strong we are.
True.
You know, thank God too, because
Yes.
like if every time you blacked out, you were now at risk of some long-standing attachment. That would be bad
frightening.
business.
It would be very bad business. And and that's true. We do, again, we have a team, and and really the other part of that, just because you say team, don't let me get possessed, don't let me have an attachment, and then you go and do every single solitary thing to create one. Don't blame the team. It is a work in progress. You're both working on the same team. If you step away, it's free will. So yes, they're there to protect you, but only if you follow some guidelines too. If you follow some basic things to prevent it.
Absolutely.
It's the same equivalent. If I jump off a cliff, I can't expect my guides to teach me to fly. You see?
The thing too, these energies, the siren call, right? That
Yes.
store. Here in Dallas, there's that bridge. There are, I always say this, no matter how strong you think you are, realistically speaking, if you go find the most satanic ritual spot that's been discovered and you go there, I don't really know what you expect is going to happen, but it can't, if you're walking into the den of something.
Yeah, sure.
There's a very good chance you're going to walk out with some part of it.
Well, that's true. And you do have to be mindful of it. And people out there, I know I had one colleague that thought everything was just, to the umpth degree of love and light, that nothing was outside of that box unless it was just solely mental illness. And I never could convince her otherwise. And it wasn't really my need to do that anyway. But I always found it so bizarre to me, because again, I've always craved the knowledge of experience so that I can help others based on the assessment of what I've seen and done and been a part of. And I'll tell you, there's some things out there that, yeah, they will definitely put your hair on end. There are some things out in the spirit world that are frightening and scary and horrendous and dangerous. And I'm not trying to make you stay in your homes and lock the door, but people, use good guidelines, use good balance. Don't go out and just think that you are stronger than everything else that's around you, because it doesn't necessarily work like that. Protect yourself. I'm clear and grounded. As many things that I've seen, I'm clear and grounded. I believe I can be. So can you. So take precautions.
What do you think? Oh, I want to get to Iggy's last question because I can't remember it off the top of my head. Man, this is such a fascinating conversation because it really is. It's just this recognition. We see these horrible people, physical human beings in the world.
Right.
And so it would be, and we see very angelic people, like very giving and good and of the light. It makes sense that would, those the stratified energies would exist in the spiritual.
Right.
It is a place. Absolutely. Okay, it says what to do if you happen to be certain someone has an attachment. And I would like to go into some detail without, like, I believe he had a previous friend or like a colleague who reached out to him like months ago. It's like, hey, I'm working with somebody. They are trying to get rid of this attachment. So that person vocalized that he felt he had one.
Right.
And then Iggy didn't know what to do about it. So I'm sure this is in reference to that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And just because someone says, hey, get rid of this attachment, doesn't mean that they're going to have the same, hey, get rid of this attachment 5 minutes after you start. Because remember, there's a relationship there, a host and a parasite. Okay.
And it digs in.
The host is like, free me, get me, here's my white flag, I'm on out of this. Give me, free my body, free my mind, free my energy. And the host is like, hey, the parasite's like, wait, I'm not ready to go. You haven't brought me anybody else. Where am I going? You're kicking me out of my house. Do you see? So first you have to acknowledge that something is off. Okay. And then you have to acknowledge it again, that it's not you just thinking something's off because the belief systems don't match yours. So you can't go in there, like they're like we've seen in religious sectors that go in there, oh my gosh, your belief system is different. You must be of the evil. You must be of the devil. You must be of this or that. So be mindful, use good judgment, go in there and say, you're acting a little bit different. Okay. So number one, we got something going on. Are you sick? Are you healthy? Are you not healthy? What is going on? Okay. Physically, okay. We seem okay. You're working regular hours. You're not working 100 hours. You're not probably overworked. Okay. You seem normal. You're clean. You took a bath. You don't smell poorly. So you go through a kind of a list of those type of questions in your brain in order for you to assess the next step. And oftentimes then you would go and you'd be very loving. I'd say, hey, if he's in a situation, I'd say, hey, you want to go for a walk? Let's go do that. What do you think about this or that? Get a little bit more feedback. If all of a sudden now I'm talking about how beautiful the day is and you say you wish it would rain and you hate days like this, then okay, we got a little bit of a direction. We know, you're not enjoying me trying to take you out of there. And that's talking to the parasite. So we do it in small pieces. We don't go in there rushing in with making the sign of the cross, waving a cross in the air with, a string of garlic around our neck, right?
Right.
That only works in the movies.
Right.
And so we recognize we have to kind of put our kid gloves on and we've got to be respectful and loving. And, that's when I'd say, hey, I always take this opportunity in such a beautiful day to be glad for who I am. I clear and ground. I put my hands up and just clear and ground and keep it all wholesome. Isn't that great? You want to do that with me? Come on, humor me. You know me. And I would play and do things like that to kind of get the energy a little bit balanced. Guys aren't going to go around swinging their arms and, asking them to, do the dance down the park. But with his question, I would simply befriend, continue to be a friend, make sure that the answers are very loving rather than inflammatory. So if someone says, I hate today, don't go along with them and go, yeah, me too, it sucks. Go, well, I'm having a pretty good day. Actually, today seems like a good day for me. So I'm sorry you're not having a great day. So what you're doing is you're being neutral where you need to be. And you're not going in and, with a flashlight looking for what's, behind the eyes. It's a process. And Iggy, when you do have a friend like that, there's a lot of things that come into play. Are they having a problem with addiction? Are they going through divorce? Are they going through a mental breakdown? Are they in some type of, emotional trauma, mental trauma? What is exactly going on? We can't jump just to attachments. If all of a sudden they've been, hanging out doing, miscellaneous drugs with some rough people, then you probably got another direction to kind of lean towards. You be kind, you be patient, you be loving, and nothing hates that more than someone who's attached to anyone. They really don't.
And another methodology, and I think this is helpful even if someone doesn't have an attachment, but this I think would be effective as well, is if you basically said to someone you love a lot, like, hey, you got two people, like, and just act like you don't know, they don't bring up it seems like there's two Terrys. One really wants the best for itself and one doesn't.
Right.
And we got to figure out why Terri over here doesn't want the best for yourself.
Exactly.
And if there's a way to turn, to really personify the version of a person that is of the good and that wants the best and kind of generate some anger or like some affront, like I would be offended if I felt, like there was a version of me that just really wants me to fail. If you can get that, like, I don't want that in my energy. I don't want to be that person.
Exactly.
That will help extract.
Right.
And they won't even know they're doing metaphysical work.
No, that's exactly right. Now, again, people, this is just to be reminded, we all have bad days. There are days that you don't want to see the sunshine. You want the thunder and the storms and the clouds, and, you're miserable and you want to stay that way. Sometimes we need that to kind of clear and cleanse our own energies, and that's okay. But this is something, if it's perpetuated, if it's every day you're this way, and then this is the new you, and it's getting worse, and now you don't care about anybody or anything, and then there's another another part of this. And it may still be, maybe you're depressed. Well, if you're depressed, what is the breakdown of that? Did you lose someone? Did you lose your job? Is your marriage failing? Is your health failing? Or do you have an attachment? I believe that really, when you get right down to it, if we look at it from that standpoint, it really is about, kind of crossing your T's and dotting your I's. These things all could come into play for an attachment, or it's just an attachment, a parasitic attachment that just decides that you're it until you're not. And the best way to be not is to get happy, is to take some Epsom salt baths. It is to walk out in the sunshine. It is to open the blinds of your room and your door and open the windows. It's to get out in nature. And
it's to take actions that you wouldn't mind the light seeing.
Yes, exactly. Go to a drumming circle. Go to a singing bowl circle. Go listen to something that parasites don't like joy. Remember, they don't want to hear all these good vibrations. They want you to be miserable and stuck. They want you sitting in the dark with the lights off. They don't want you out there enjoying life.
Is it because they can't, if they're lower density or they're lower vibration, and when they get us into that state, we are lower vibration.
Yes.
Is the whole joy thing and the laughter and the good stuff, they just can't generate energy from that?
It just doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't, fear and anger are the most powerful emotions, unfortunately, even though we say love is all, and love is. But fear and anger is what brings all spirits into the energy. If I walk into a room in a paranormal investigation and I go, get out here now, I want you right now, I'm going to get something, and that's probably not a good way of doing it, right? I'm probably going to get a response of going, hey, what are you doing here? Something's going to get their feathers ruffled, right? Whether it's a good spirit getting angry or a bad spirit lapping up the joy of misery, right?
You told me recently-ish about a paranormal investigation where you did feel like a temporary possession occurred in front of you.
Yes, I did.
Would you be willing to talk about that?
Sure. I mean, I could feel it. And what I did was I basically prayed over this person, and I had my team, whatever prayer worked for them. Again, I don't, if a Christian prayer isn't your bag, then you go wherever you go with your prayer, because it's only powerful if you believe it. Okay. And so we did, we prayed around her. We stood around her. We actually cleared energy around her. We needed to, because it was clear that what we were driving out of the rooms, that was a really bad time. Not a bad investigation. It has nothing to do about the investigation. It has to do with what you find sometimes in the investigation. But this really nasty energy immediately just ran into her.
Oh, so it wasn't co-traveling with her at that point?
No, it ran into her.
Oh, no.
It may have been co-traveling, throughout the day. I feel like it was in the house all the time. But it was also comfortable living in the house because no one was giving it any grief. Do you see? And so we come in as an investigative team, knowing that what's happened in this house, knowing that there's negative energy, clearing it, clearing one room, moving to the next, clearing that room, moving to the next, doing all of our work. Well, this
it feels
energy,
hunted.
Yeah, it ran back to her. So we had to clear her. And so it was quite profound to watch. And she didn't know what we'd been doing. So it wasn't like the best rehearsed act of, fakery. It truly was. We were getting it out of all the rooms. And the last room we were trying to banish it from was the living area where she was.
And how did you come to realize that because I don't remember exactly what you said, but she became almost feral, or what happened? Like,
she started shaking and crying. She curled up into a fetal position on the sofa, and she didn't want anyone near her. And she was muttering under her breath, but we couldn't hear what she was saying. And she was basically, you could tell the physical body was being attacked. The emotional side of her was being attacked. And what was in her was not happy with us. And she was not happy we were standing all around her either. It wasn't like, pray for me, I need somebody to help. It was more like, get away from me. And we didn't. We kept doing it until we saw her body relax, and she, got out of the fetal position, and she relaxed. And I realized it wasn't just trickery. She was actually okay, that something had released her. And then we put her in a room
Wow.
that was clear and did it cleaned the living room, cleared the living room.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, there's
And
some
Taylor
things
was
to
there
be.
for that?
What's that?
Taylor was there as well?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
And how did he respond to that experience?
He agreed. He said, you know, what we've got here is we've got some bad lower vibrational energy, and it just found her as a host. We figured it had been doing that off and on. We figured that it was jumping in and out, but
Wow.
her house was comfortable because this energy felt like it was their home.
That's so much.
It's amazing, and I recognize, and I always say, you know, until the day I stop recognizing how strange this sounds, yeah, worry about me then. But this stuff is real. This is bizarre to watch, and I've taken in teams, new teams, that are just kind of getting their feet wet with some of this stuff, and they're like, "Oh my God, we didn't even know this stuff existed." And I'm like, well, you know, I could tell you to the end of time, and you can just go, but until you're in the throes of some of this stuff, you really don't know what anyone's really talking about. Till you get there, and you're like, yeah, I see it now. This is what it is. This is the real deal. This is the bad stuff.
Well, and the fortunate part about a lot of this, realistically, because the work that you do, whether it's in the psychic world or in the investigation world, it's going to populate your life with more events of this nature.
Oh, yes.
Just by nature of that.
Yeah.
But, you know, the 3D is so busy for all of us.
Yeah.
It's very fortunate that the reality is attachments are actually rare.
They are rare, and thank goodness for that. Yes.
Yeah. And so, like, we're talking, I'm curious, so I keep asking about these experiences. But for the listeners, it's like, I do promise, like, you're not going to be finding a ton of this. No. So that's why when it gets on TikTok and it's like, my brother has an attachment, I have an attachment, it's so rare. It really truly is a little bit more rare than people would like to think.
It is.
Because it makes people feel really cool or really powerful or really unique or whatever it could be.
They feel powerful. They make it makes them feel like, wow, look at me, aren't I amazing? And you know, and I know that sounds weird, but you'd be amazed. I have some people, yeah, I think I have an attachment. And it's like, you're wearing it like a badge. That's not what you would be if you had an attachment.
Well, it's kind of like like, this sounds terrible, but like, you know, those tags on ears for calves and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like, I would say this, and I don't mean this badly at all, but this is a true statement. If somebody actually has an attachment, it's like you're earmarked to have had really bad habits or in a really bad spot for a long period of time.
Yes.
Like, it's not good. It indicates that your energy was weak enough to allow for it. And that doesn't happen overnight, typically.
No, it doesn't. That's true. It's usually a lifelong situation where you're abusing your body, you're abusing your mind, you're abusing others. You tend to not look at humanity as being anything much more than a term. You know, and again, that doesn't mean that everyone with an attachment is a bad person. It simply means that check yourself at the door. You know, who are you? What are you? What do you want from your life? You know, do you lead with anger and hostility, or do you lead with joy and love? What is it you want? I'll tell you, you know, when you do as much as you can to have joy and love, you tend to be okay. It slips off your back and goes somewhere else. But again, I try to do my best, but I had one significant one. And that one, again, I'm very grateful for the experience, and I'm very grateful to still be here to talk about the experience. But I do know that it helped me to recognize just how powerful some of this stuff is.
And what a cost to pay for that knowledge.
It was pretty severe. But you know what? Live and learn. This is, you know.
Do. Well, and you know, we can get into this in the next episode, but there's this thing that's been happening with people taking photos of stars. Have you heard about this?
No, tell me about it.
Something weird's going on where a lot of people are reviewing their footage, and basically it's presenting like demonic faces where they were also physically at the concert. So they were like, we didn't see that. So something about our technology is picking up on this better lately. Yeah. And that is a very interesting attachment / possession, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
And it seems...
It's freaky. I mean, yeah. I mean, and concert goers don't stop doing that because all of a sudden now the boogeyman's in your room with you. The boogeyman's always been in your room with you. I mean really, true. Realistically, nothing's changed there, folks. It's just that we're getting better footage from them now. Okay?
That's wild, isn't it?
live a good life, don't take everything that's negative and make it your way out. Just live, live wholefully, live soulfully. I know there's a lot of depression and there's a lot of poverty and there's a lot of frustration and there's just a lot of issues in our life. I mean, I'm not absent of those problems either, but you've got to find a balance. You've got to find a place in your life where you are okay. Because I'm going to tell you, if you're not okay, you will eventually be a lot worse. So get okay now,
Yeah. Well, thank goodness for our guides. Thank goodness for, I think, the fact that a lot of us do actually want to be happy and do
Yes.
actually want to be okay.
Yeah,
So
that's right. And thank goodness for Iggy. Come on, people, ask
Yeah.
those questions.
we had a
Iggy
comment.
gets the gold pin.
Yeah. We had a comment on one of those reels.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so funny because it was where I was saying, wouldn't it be just so funny if I die and none of this is real? You know what I mean? And then the question was, well, what is it you actually believe? And I was like, damn, that's such a big answer.
Wow, that's a great question, though. What do you believe?
But I did comment back, and I said what I do believe. But yeah, so we are getting. It's a lot. Honestly, what's really sweet is it's just a lot of love this, agree, things like that.
I love that. Very good. And what do we believe? We believe in you. We believe in love. We believe in hope. We believe probably in life everlasting, whatever that everlasting part looks like to each and every one of you. I mean,
we believe in redemption,
forgiveness. We believe in a lot of things.
And honestly, for all of the dark that we acknowledge, man, do we fight for and acknowledge the light.
You bet. There has to be light, right? There is. We see it every day of the week. And
it's that yin and yang stuff. I mean, there's some that's real.
It is. It is. There is a balance there. And there is a lot of stuff going on. Oh my gosh. In our world globally, economically, socially, you name all the big heavy hitters. We're all in a kind of state of flux right now. But we don't have to be in a state of flux in our own way, in our own energy. We can still have the same belief systems. We can still have the same, challenge and the same success of, clear ground, love, be good, be kind, have some mantras, make yourself positive, get some affirmations, do a vision board, make life work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also with the energy stuff, one thing I've shared with people before, if you have a favorite color and you just decide that that's the color of you, we are very self-aware whether we want to be or not more often than not. Yep. It's very easy to visualize the color purple, for instance. So whenever you ask yourself, you say you leave a partnership and they're blue, you're like, well, I'm a little bit navy right now. I need to get back to being purple. Or if you fail a test, you're like, I'm feeling really gray. I need to figure out how to become more rich in the color that I am.
Yes.
And that sort of checking with yourself, that can really help because it also tells your guides and yourself, I'm off color. I can feel it, but I'm going to be purple by the end of today again. I don't know what that's going to take. That's my promise to myself.
That's exactly
right.
I think
that helps.
Oh, I love that, Sterling. It absolutely does. Be creative. I mean, we got this life to live. We got 24/7. We all got the same times. Just be creative. What color is your favorite? Like Sterling said, find something that makes you happy. What is it you want to do to create a better today for you? A better way of looking at today for you?
How do you upgrade your day?
Ooh, how do you upgrade your day? And I swear, if anyone out there names their book Upgrade, I'm in trouble because that's mine and all mine. Just kidding.
I love it. Kidding. You send your guides to trademark it for you.
I know. I have to because it is about upgrade. Everyone needs and wants an upgrade. We just all think that we can't, as we have all heard, we can't afford to upgrade. Of course you can. What are you upgrading? A lot of things don't cost. So.
And it's about choosing your heart too. It's like it's going to be hard to have an attachment. It's also going to be hard to do the things to get rid of it.
Yes.
So which heart are we picking, guys?
Exactly. And for me, I don't get an attachment because they tell me I talk too much. So, I mean, go figure.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. I put my
I love
glasses
you
back
so
on so I can see
much.
y'all better. I love you so much. Oh my gosh. This is
And
July 1. And
it
I don't know
is.
what time and when the viewers are going to be seeing it, but you'll all have July 1 at some point, right?
Yes. Well, and I want to say this because this is just true. Thank goodness for the work that you do in spirit, because it's so much that you do. Like, you do so many different things within that world, and so much of it is protective,
Well,
like, just
thank you.
hands down.
I
So I
love
think
what I
that's
do.
amazing.
And same to you, my dear. Oh my gosh, you're out there helping people right and left. You've found your calling. And, I know that this is something that's only going to continue to grow and grow. And no, that's what we do. And that's what you're doing right now. And I love that. Life is meant to be good. It can also take us in the trench and keep us in the trenches. But I don't believe that's where we should land. I feel like we have an opportunity. And maybe it's just bite-sized pieces that we start off with first. But we have all an opportunity to live a good life. There's there's no set path. There's no set way. Start small, one step in front of the other. But find your rhythm, find your way, and keep the attachments off. They're just not worth it.
Just be like the Teflon man.
Yes, the Teflon man. Or as I say when we're doing the duck walk, let it go off your back. Woo!
Well, and that's, when people get uncomfortable, I wonder, because you do make people do that, like you, and I wonder if that annoys attachments too. It's like, I don't want to duck walk.
I know. Well, exactly, because they're just so, so reserved and so refined.
Oh my God, right. Yeah. They've got their ego. We know that.
It's about ego. Yes, it is. So that's why I do that sometimes. I mean, it's to change the energy. I need to know if you have a negative thought form, if you have a negative energy around you, attachment.
So that's the litmus test. If you don't want to duck walk, you got an attachment.
That's right. And we got to do something else.
I love that. What a funny diagnostic too.
Oh, it's a lot of fun too. It helps.
Well, I love you so much.
I love
you. We have done it.
We have done it. Oh my gosh. Another wonderful day. It's a busy day. It's a busy day for you, my dearest, or are you relaxing for a change?
I'm off today. I'm debating if I'm going to go to this dinner thing, but yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I have a student today, so I wish him well.
Good.
He's stuck with me for 2 hours, or near enough to 2 hours. So I'm looking forward.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I miss those days. The training was a lot of fun.
We did have some fun. Now we still have fun, but it's not. We don't have to train anymore.
I love this. And I love seeing you every week. We took a little bit of a 2-week hiatus, and we do the best that we can.
We do the best we can. That's right.
And we kill it. So
that's what we do. Not you, but killing it.
Yes.
I
love you so much.
I love you too.
I'll see you next week.
See you next week, people. Send messages, send positive comments, and send questions, because that's what we're here for. Is for you.
Please comment your questions.
Yes.
We keep getting new subscribers. It's really cool. Things are moving. And my favorite thing about when we gain followers is like, we do no promotion really. We're very grassroots at this point, and that makes me feel so good because we don't lose the subscribers.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, so far, so it's lovely because we know that people that want to be with us, they are. And we're not here to change anyone's opinion.
No.
We're here to be a resource for information that we feel and know to be true through our own experiences.
Absolutely.
That's what this podcast is about.
Absolutely. We're here for you.
Yeah.
And you, and you, and you.
Exactly. And we hope that this podcast finds those that need it the most, and we hold space for that. We do. That's our plan. I love you.
I love you too. Bye-bye, lovely.
Bye.
Bye-bye.